Hello and welcome to the final round of the Friday GT Sprint Challenge Season 7. It's not been a very long season, but boy, it has been action packed. Who's going to walk away with the top crown in the pro category today? Here at the finale. We're live in Kyalami, South Africa. I'm Jesse Lee, joined by Tim Peck as always, with Stewie behind the cameras in the box with us. Tim Peck, welcome to South Africa. And yes, I know you're thinking I didn't say it in a native language. I did. I was using Afrikaans there.
Very good, very good. I like the twist you've put on that at the end. But thank you, Jesse, for the introduction. I've absolutely loved being here so far in this champ, and I cannot wait to see how it all ends today. Of course, I've got my eyes on the three at the front right now: George Boothby, Samir Foch, and Hugo Morales, purely because this could be, Jesse, the third win of the championship for George Boothby, but then again, it could also not be. Up until last week, we had one new driver winning every single race, and I'm wondering if we're going to have a Boothby win today, or whether someone new is going to come out and shine in this final race of the season.
Well, here in practice, it's all George Boothby. It doesn't have to be, folks, by the way. He's got a nice lead, just as Tim Peck has told you. We'll obviously look at the championship points after the conclusion of qualifying here today. But Boothby just needs a decent day to secure that victory. But it's not all over for several of the drivers in the field as well. Keep in mind, you can get 70 plus points for just about a perfect day. And there are several drivers still in the hunt here on the final week of the season. Tim Peck, thoughts on Kyalami?
Oh, it's one of those tracks that I think is a very good judge of a driver's skill level. Of course, you've got a lot of different types of corners, a lot of fast corners as well, that can get quite technical depending on what way you want to take them. So I think it's going to really test the drivers in the final round today. And it's one of my favorite tracks. I will admit, I used to not be a huge fan of it back when I first started out driving, but now it has grown on me, and I can definitely say I enjoy watching people battle it out here.
Well, it's such a historic racetrack, and the revitalization, the rejuvenation that this circuit has enjoyed in recent memory has brought this track back to the forefront of everybody's mind. Of course, they have the 9 hours of Kyalami here as well, a brilliant race in its own right, and it's a fan favorite throughout the entirety of ACC. It's one of those tracks nobody really complains about coming to, and there have been, over the course of the history of this track in ACC, some cars that have played a mighty favorite, but we are sort of in uncharted territory here today, folks. The more recent update, I won't say the last update, but one of the last few updates did change the BOP just a little bit, and I'm not sure who the top dog's going to be, though it still looks like a decent lead for all the Ferraris up front here as qualifying gets underway. 10-minute session, and Savalainen did not want to be the first car out of the pit lane and found that very, very interesting. And apparently, it rained in between practice and qualifying, and that has left us with a damp track.
I was going to say, I saw the track sort of weather had damp written underneath, and I thought, hang on a second, it wasn't raining just now, but that is going to shake things up in qualifying because, of course, usually you want to be the first out on the track, Jesse, but now, whilst that's still the case, your first couple of laps aren't actually going to matter so much because the track's damp, it's still drying up, it's just gone to greasy now, but still, these first few laps are not going to be as fast as what they will be at the end of the session. So I imagine here, what we're just going to see is a lot of drivers fighting more for track position, trying to get into a good space and not batting their tyres too much. So by the time we get into those final few minutes, by the final lap, that is when you have a lap that counts, because until that track gets a lot drier and gets into that green state, these laps are not going to be hitting the times the drivers want yet.
At some point, throwing down a banker lap and just waiting might be the precautionary tale. It's gone from damp down to greasy now. It has changed quite a lot, but still a little bit of spray out there from some of the cars. It's treacherous conditions, and you're absolutely right, Tim. You're spot on. This track's definitely going to improve, or at least I would assume it's going to improve. And so many cars here today would, I think, will at least get back to green. I don't think we'll get much past that, but all of these laps are just installation laps, if you will, early on into this session, though. That being said, only a 10-minute session and 2 minutes have already gone by on the flying lap. So how far will we get? I don't know. And this is not, by the way, what George Boothby and Hugo Merrells and the like were hoping for the finale. They were hoping for no surprises here today, but that has not come into play. Let's take a lap around Kyalami, South Africa, just in case you're unfamiliar with this fantastic racetrack. This technically turn two. The dog leg in the front straight is turn one, and climbing the hill into, I'm not sure if that's the sunrise or the sunset now that I've just been fronted with that, but up the hill and now nice left-hander. You'll see several cars go off, get themselves into trouble. We've had cars go off and come back across the track and collect others. Now Sunset, and I think this might be Sunset, and that is case in point. The corner named Sunset, and that's why. No further explanation required. The left-hander, another turn that can get you into trouble. They'll try to go too wide through here, but they better get it settled before they come into the S's section here. This is one car wide most of the time, and if you're not one car single file driving through this section, it's going to be a huge problem. See a lot of accidents there as well. Up to the top of Leacop, a double apex left-hander, and you cannot afford to get this wrong. The run down into mine shaft, down the hill, falling away all the time. You see a lot of passes set up here as well. You see some drivers dive to the outside. There is a lot of room out there. You can see the color in the tarmac changing where it is drier versus where it's wetter. The lighter gray, of course, the drier section. Track drying seems to be going really well. The final couple of corners, and now into the final corner. Ingwe, you back out onto the front straight. Got to be careful the last 2 or 3 corners here. Always a difficult section of the racetrack. And what will Jardier for in the Garage 59 liveried car do? It's a 45.175, so not quite a dry lap like we expected, though. We'll have to see. Is that good or not? We don't know. Anko Dimitrov does come through. They're at 1.1 off, but Juna Savalainen, who we suspect had a false start on the wrong tires, not expecting the track to be wet at the time, is up running second quickest, 65/100ths off of Jardier's time.
Here's the thing, Jess, is you mentioned earlier that you only have 10 minutes in qualifying, so it's already a short qualifying session, but with the track being greasy and still adapting, like you said, it might turn green, it might not. It's shortening the amount of fast laps you can get in. George Boothby has just come in with the quickest lap time. That's a 1:44.5, so they're about 6 tenths above Jardier at the moment, and Bosch has just come in as well, 5 tenths behind, and they're currently in second, but it's going to be really tight towards the end. And actually, I noticed Jardier returned to the pit as soon as their lap was over, and I'm wondering if maybe there was a hint of tactic in that.
Probably was. They probably figured they got just about all they were going to get, because every car that's come through since then has either gotten really close to putting themselves on provisional pole or have done exactly that. Case in point, Samir Foch came through. They were 5 tenths. Well, actually, they were 1/10, 1.5 tenths quicker than Jardier. And then you had George Boothby come through. And then this man, Hugo Merrells, the John Alesi Esports Academy Ferrari, able to stick it on provisional pole, a 44.5. This track absolutely improving. By the way, Boothby, absolutely in no man's land. 3/1000ths off the overall pace. What is George doing out there?
Well, right now they're just going to be trying to improve their time, and looking at the delta, Jesse, they are already up, but so is everybody else. So whether this means the track is already progressively got a lot better, I'd say that's a pretty good indicator that it has so far. And I think it's just going to come down to who can get out their lap at the last possible second. Of course, we talked about how the track will get more towards that green over time, which will help those lap times become a lot better. But basically, what you actually want to be here is you want to be the last person over the line. You don't want to be crossing it a minute before your opponent. You want to be crossing it as soon as it hits zero, basically, so that you get that final lap in. But just a little bit before the clock hits zero, that's when you want to cross the line here, because that's when you get the ideal track conditions for your fastest lap.
It sure is. It's going to be a battle of who can time it the best. And sometimes really shoot yourself in the foot a little bit if you go out there. George Boothby back to the point of 43.405. That's 7 tenths faster than Seamanara in P2 right now. Wouter Billen up to P3. Hugo down to fourth place. And this man, Martin Lawrence, who is in P5. They were in P3 just a moment ago, but now coming back through the connection lost racing Audi. How far up the field will they go? You would imagine it would be somewhat, and it is all the way up to P2, 27/100ths off of George Boothby's time. Oh, this is going to be a shootout here to see who can get to the line just as it strikes one, because if you get there when it strikes zero, your day is done. But you get there with one, you get one extra lap. Who's going to time it the best?
Well, you said at the beginning that a lot of the drivers they were hoping for no surprises. Well, that's certainly not the case. This has been a huge surprise. And what I love so much about this, Jesse, is that there are some drivers right now in that top 10 that we've not seen in this top 10 across the entire season so far. But they are drivers that we would like to see in the top 10 because they're drivers that have been in there in different championships. So to have this real mix of drivers up there, anything could happen. And right now I'm looking at the two people leading this championship, George Boothby and Hugo Merriles, and there's currently 8 cars between them. That's not what you expect to see. Usually they're right at the top together, but looking now, Billen has just gone and put in the fastest time of 1:43.3. We could have a really interesting start here.
Well, we got there. The track completely green now, and just as I say that, it's gone fast. Everybody now on a fast racetrack. It's not quite perfect, but it's a lot better than the damp track we started with. Seamanara goes to the point, but immediately gets replaced by Valentin Berrier of 42.362, the current quickest lap. But how long will that last? I don't think it's going to last very long at all. Hugo Merrill's into P3, but they're more than 8 tenths down right now as everybody working, trying to be the last car to get a lap in. A ton of cars, the majority of cars, slowed down in an effort to time it. A couple of them, though, I've already been told, are going to come up just a little bit short. He who dares wins here in qualifying.
I think that Boothby is the last person on the track right now that can make it across the line in time. We're currently riding with Dimitrov here, but I'm not sure that they're going to get round time, so this could be their final qualifying lap. We will, of course, see once they get closer to it, but you can just see the person on provisional pole, Jesse, is being replaced every couple of seconds. Whenever someone new crosses a line, they become the next provisional pole driver, and that is going to be why everyone is trying to slow down and get this timing perfect. But looking now, you can see George Boothby coming round those final set of corners. I'm not sure that anyone past him is going to be able to get to the line, but it's going to be very tight for Dimitrov. They've got about 20 seconds from here to get to the line before it hits zero, and I don't know if they're going to do it, Jesse.
Here we go, the final couple of corners for Vanko Dimitrov, the Mad Panda Motorsport liveried car. Such a nice car. I know other people have their opinions. I love the way that car looks. 3 seconds, 2 seconds, not going to get there. Time is going to expire. Dimitrov will come across the line, and they will bump themselves into P7, but they got there a second too late. Everybody now on their final lap. Savalainen, the mark to beat, of 42.190. Seamanara has finished. They're just about 1.5 tenths off of pole position. Martin Lawrence still on a great lap. George Boothby also fighting in that number 800. Martin Lawrence comes across the line, and the connection lost car 1/100th off of pole position. Currently held now by Samir Fasha. 41.862 drops Savalainen down to third. Max Payne has come across the line, and they're done with qualifying. Savalainen still out there looking to make a lap, but we ride on board the 800 Ferrari. Why? Because we suspect he might have the best run at pole here.
They do need to find a little bit more pace across the track, but of course the track has been drying up everywhere, so they can pick up a lot of time in these final few corners, Jesse. But George Boothby is on an absolutely flying lap right now. It is their personal best so far, and will no doubt be their personal best by the time they get to the end. Southline currently on provisional pole, 1.58 seconds ahead of Boothby. They need to hope that Boothby cannot close that gap a lot, as Boothby takes a lot of the curb there. Is this going to be enough, Jesse? I think it just
Oh,
might
it's
be.
big.
Boothby is an absolutely beautiful lap, and I think this might be enough to smash everyone else's time out the park. George Boothby is going to cross the line, and where's that going to put him? Right on pole, 2 tenths above South Line. George Boothby with over 141.545 times this qualifying perfectly to T.
Well, you got to say the man that has the most to lose did not falter here in qualifying, while others may have cracked. Boothby did not. The fastest two first sectors of all, and a 41.545, the quickest in this mixed condition qualifying. Savalainen will, of course, settle for second place, nearly 3 tenths off of Boothby's pace, but will enjoy a front row start. Bosch in row number two with Martin Lawrence. And speaking of Martin Lawrence, had the fastest third sector of anybody there. Very interesting indeed. Jardier rounds out your top five. Outside the top five, Alessio Mellis. You got Justice in the number, what car is that? That's the 22, of course. See the times start to fall away, but beyond that, Payne, Simonara, and Berrier, your top 10. Just about all those cars within a second, though. It's going to be very close racing, Tim. Start to think about what the run down into turn two might look like.
Hectic, but one thing I can't help but notice is that, as you can see here, George Boothby's closest competitor, Hugo, is currently sitting all the way down in 15th place. They've got a lot to climb if they want to take the fight to Boothby today.
That's a very good point, Tim. George Boothby does lead the points. This is how they stack up coming into the season finale tonight. 201 points. That is 31 better than Hugo Merrill's in second place. Behind them, Jaroslav Hanzik with 154. Cartier has done such a good job of staying out of trouble in this series, I must say. Valentin Berrier, pretty much the same story, 136. 3 points behind them, Samir Foch inside the top five, looking to do further damage today. Tico Vandervelde in sixth place, 122 points. Martin Lawrence in seventh with 112. Garrett Fisher on 103 and eighth. Marco Ripper in the triple six in ninth place, 85 points. And a few behind them, rounding out your top 10, Romain Thomas.
I mean, what a top 10 that is. That is some phenomenal drivers there. And these are some phenomenal drivers here in the top 20 as well. We've got Seminara with 77 points there, currently in 11th place. Dimitrov, who we got a little bit in qualifying, not quick enough to make it to the line in time for a final lap. They're currently in 12th with 70 points. Salvalainen has 68 points there in 13th. Just 1 point behind them, though, is Wouter Billen. They're in 14th place. Alessio Mellis is in 15th place there, followed by Jason Dyer in 16th, who has 59 points. Morgan McCall has 50 points, and they are in 17th. Sem Smeets, 1 point behind, is in 18th place, and Christian Bock and Oscar Soristo are tied for 19th place.
Outside the top 20, still good points on offer today. Any of these drivers could bump up many spots. Anna Vardsson in 21st with 41. Jordan Daly on 38. Nicholas Bosselet on 34. Pierre-Alexander Session with 28 points. Justice with 26 points. Tied with Brochures in 25th place. Matthew Schroeder on 25. 2 points in front of Brian Scheckerman. Max Payne, 1 point behind him. And rounding out the top 30, Ashley Richardson with 18 points.
A good result from any of these drivers today could put them up into, well, possibly a couple of places, maybe even 10 or so. But Martin Lindrup has 18 points there in 31st, and Herman Frey with 0 points in 32nd is still in this championship. Everyone else with a little dash where the points are has signed out of the championship. But I've got to say, Jesse, like you said a couple of times, any of these drivers, if they get a good result today, they could be finding themselves gaining 10, maybe even 15 positions, because that is what the points offers here. And I've got to say, this is a very important race for pretty much every driver on the grid.
Certainly so. One of the big retirements we saw early was Maciej Malinowski, obviously leading that very first race, had a huge crash in Australia and did not return. But most recently, Jade Hutchinson, who was the nearest competitor to George Boothby, has, of course, signed out of the championship. They were not here for the last round of the championship, and they have not returned this week as well. So the big story of what might have been for Hutchinson and that Honda NSX. But let's focus on what we have in front of us today. Mathematically speaking, there are about 3 or 4 drivers that could take it home today. Realistically, there is only one. Hugo Merrill's can pull off the upset because George Boothby has already used his mulligan on the season. Of course, round number one, not with us, was busy elsewhere. And ever since then has put on an absolute clinic, has George Boothby, but he's had to put himself in this position. A really poor finish here today. 30 points, not insurmountable. 31 points, I should say, not insurmountable for Hugo Merrill's today. Hugo has put in a lot of great work all season. And again, another great finish with a Boothby DNF would see the Frenchman the champion today, Tim.
And that's the thing, even though Hugo is currently not in a place where they can really strike at Boothby and try and fight them on the track right now, they are in that spot where if Boothby makes a mistake, ends up off the track and DNFing, like you said, they could find themselves in a lot of trouble in the championship because they've already used their drop round. So what I want to see from George Boothby today is that they can't just take this easy, and I'm sure they won't, but you're sitting on pole right now, you're 14 paces above your nearest competitor. There's going to be a part of you that thinks, okay, just to relax, you've totally got this. But what I need to see from George is total concentration to make sure nothing goes wrong here, because they just need to make sure that they stay out of trouble and get the best result they can. And I'm sure they will. Knowing Boothby as a driver, they will be putting out their hardest today to make sure that this championship victory is well earned and that they showcase exactly why they deserve this championship.
Well, while we are also here talking about what might be, just to give you an idea of how close the middle pack championship battle is, Morgan McCall, who has done some really nice work in the later part of this season, South African as well, so welcome home to Morgan McCall. I assume he's in the field somewhere this evening. He has just about 50 points. Morgan McCall not in the field, I'm told, but I'm going to use the analogy anyway. He had 50 points. If he would have got another decent finish here tonight, he could have jumped all the way inside the top 10 or maybe even beyond that. There's just so few points between the drivers from right around 8th, 9th place all the way back to about 16th, 17th position. You could see somebody move that far up. And, you know, while a championship fight is the spicy thing everyone wants to talk about, as a driver, you'll take that if you can jump from the middle of nowhere up inside the top 10 late in a series.
Oh, 100%. And that's why I think this is such an important race for everyone here on the track right now, is because even in the top 10, even in the top 20, going all the way down to those that find themselves towards the bottom of the leaderboard, Jesse, they can all gain so many places today with a good result. And after what we had in qualifying, where there was that mixed weather that actually ended up giving us some new drivers showing up in this top 10, there are some potential winners and losers here today on the track, and I can't wait to see how this affects the final standings. But they're just about to approach the start-finish straight now. I've got to say, in this moment, if I'm sitting there driving, I'm getting very nervous about how this final race goes, and I don't doubt that there's going to be a lot of scrapping and fighting towards turn one. Of course, counting turn one here not as the kink, as the second corner on the track officially. But Jesse Lee, take us away for the final time.
George Boothby has everything to gain and everything to lose today. He needs a good start out in front with Juna Savalainen right there beside him. Coming down to get the flag. It's a long wait with so many cars, but the green flag is out for the final time this season here in the Friday Sprint Championship, and they fan out 2 and 3 wide into the field. And look at this, it's a huge move from the front of the field, and can you believe it? Oh no, 3 and 4 wide, a couple of cars going off. Huge calamity in the back of the field, several cars off into the Jukeski sweep as the rest of the cars clear barbecue. But there's a race out front. They're two top contenders going at it, nose to tail, side by side. Something happened to Boothby, maybe a little bit too timid down into the first corner as they go through Sunset, still side by side. Might be able to get the muscle back down the inside, and oh my, they just about make it through. What a sensational start to this race.
George Boothby may be the favourite to win today for a lot of people in the audience right now, but that's not going to stop Savalainen from bringing it to them very early on. I mean, they were neck and neck for the first sector, the entire way round there, Jesse. And it wasn't until we got right to the end of this first sector that Boothby finally managed to pull ahead. And I don't doubt for a second that Salvoline will keep up this attack. I believe Gaudier also had a very good start. I'm not sure if they actually managed to get the move off him. They did. They're up into 4th place as well, round the outside of Martin Lawrence. So there was a lot of fighting at the front. I've got to say, that was some great racing from Salvoline, and took the outside, which isn't the strongest part of the track. It's definitely a disadvantage, but just kept at it and did not drop off Boothby without a fight, really making sure that if Boothby wanted them gone from the side of their view, they needed to push them off. And Salvoline still 4 tenths behind Boothby coming out of the first lap.
Hugo Merrils has been involved in the incident. I think that much is clear. I did see a blue and black Ferrari, but I was unsure from the helicopter position which one it was. We have so many of them, but here is the replay down into Crowthorne, turn number 2. What happens? It looks like the Mad Panda liveried car has a little contact with a Audi, it looks like, and just everybody trying to jostle for position, going 3 and 4 wide on the way up to the Jukeski sweep. Absolutely demolished the back part of the field. Boothby will be aware of that, if not by anything else, but being able to see Merrill's in the pit lane early. The only silver lining is that this will satisfy the pit requirement for that team, but likely some serious damage on that car. I know Justice was also involved, in Lindrup and the like. Bray in the 488 also involved. Looks like Schroeder was in it. They've all come down the pit lane very early on, but what a start by Savalainen. Just about had it. In fact, was in front as they entered turn 3, but somehow George Boothby able to fight through Barbecue and Sunset and eventually get the pass made again. But a scary moment right there, losing the lead on the start. I was almost not going to mention it, Tim. That does happen a lot here with that very wide turn number 2, which realistically serves as turn number 1 on a restart like that.
I'm really sorry, Jesse. I'm going to admit I did miss your question there, but it's because I was looking at the pit stop times from Hugo there, because I'm not 100% sure Hugo did get caught up in that too badly. It looked like they avoided major damage. I mean, I personally only saw a tap on the side of Hugo, and I think our broadcaster Stewie did as well, and their pit time wasn't overly long either, so I'm wondering if could this have been slightly tactical from Hugo? Maybe they gained a little bit of damage, but have they now gone out hoping to just keep fresh air and try and gain some positions back? So by the time George has to pit, maybe they've jumped the 14 or so cars that are between them, and hopefully will be sitting in a much better place to fight Boothby. Because I don't know about you, but I personally didn't see Hugo get caught up in that, which I mean, I was surprised anyway, because although it happened towards the back, it looked like Hugo was slightly clear by the end. They only suffered a little bit of damage, so I'm wondering here, Hugo being out significantly before everyone else also backs his theory up, but did Hugo do something tactical to try and gain places?
I think that might be the case, and I definitely saw contact, but it might not have been as severe as I originally had feared that it might have been, and you probably have nailed it there. That is a tactical start, and we're going to ride on board and see exactly what happened. This is Hugo Merrill, second place in the championship, sees the accident. Oh, that was significant. That was not very light at all, but still a lot lighter than some of the other cars. You saw Schroeder come in there at the end and get absolutely up the rear end of another race car, and that would have been way more severe than what Hugo dealt with, but a significant knock, but not nearly as big as it would have appeared to me initially. But wow, just incredible stuff. And again, tactical pit stop, the gambit, in my opinion, after being involved with something like that, after qualifying way back, that was really, I think, the only play Hugo had, and I think they've executed it absolutely perfectly. Fight for second place, Savalainen and Samir Foch, the red and green car respectively. Foch is looking to get up to P2, and looks like Savalainen is not having any of it. Very close quarters racing here through Barbecue. Who's going to give up before they get to Sunset? I suspect neither one of them.
Well, this has just been a phenomenal battle so far. Foch is not letting up and is really pushing Salvoline to the limit and going round Sunset here. It looks like Samir Foch might have enough to just pull ahead briefly. Does Salvoline have anything in them to try and bring this back? They've already ducked to the inside, but it looks like Foch is just going to be that little bit ahead. Although Salvoline is still very close. The cars are almost touching, Jesse, but Bosch coming out on top there. It was a brilliant overtake, and yet again, a fight that comes through the first few corners. And it looks like Jardier now wants to go on Salvalainen.
Oh, it's so close. I saw a little bit of a wiggle by Savalainen right there. Could there be a potential 3-wide situation? I would really recommend not doing that, as they all calmer heads prevail. And go back down to single file. Something up with Savalainen there. A little bit unsettled, perhaps, as look at this. Looks like Barrier trying to squeeze in there and take P4 away from Jardier. And that's exactly what he does. Caught up a little bit. Martin Lawrence in the other Audi flashing their lights at Jardier. Completely off the track right there. Did you see it from Savalainen? The grip not there in the Mercedes AMG. Maybe a little bit rattled as well. Here's the pass, by the way. Oh, this was a lap before. This was a pass on the CLR car. Oh my goodness, a little bit of contact there from Barrier.
Barrier is one of those drivers who I think have been very consistent. They're actually about to try and do a move around the outside of Salvalainen here. We've seen this done a couple of times, but it looks like Barrier doesn't quite have enough momentum to keep up the fight. Again, looking towards the inside to maybe try and pull something out of the move, but Salvalainen is going to be free from the fight for now. But Barrier has been very consistent championship so far, and so is Jardier, which is why seeing these two battle on track has been so exciting today, because these two for me are the most consistent drivers, and their points in the championship right now shows it. They've always been hovering around that 4th and 3rd slots, had a couple of podiums as well, and that to me is why they are some of the top drivers in this championship. We saw there Martin Lawrence look to try and make a move on Jardier. They were poking their nose down towards the inside of the sunset there, Jesse. And I've got to say, this front 6, especially between 4th and 6th right now, very, very feisty with each other, and not a lot between them.
No, absolutely not. George Boothby's feeling like they may have won out here today, despite the hectic start of the race. 2.5 seconds in front of Samir Foch. Foch now gapping Savalainen, who we ride on board with right now, looking back at Valentin Barrier. Jardier still back there, looks to not quite have the pace of Barrier, and Martin Lawrence sticking very close indeed. But certainly Barrier has a lot of pace, able to pass both these cars. One was a little fortuitous, admittedly, but the other one, very aggressive move down into turn number 2. Prothorn able to get it done. Will we see another pass like that? This is where it happened on the Martin Lawrence car. Oh, can't go down to the inside, blocked off by Savalainen. Barrier thinking about going around the outside, or maybe they're trying to set him up. No, he is going to go around the outside, up through the Jukeski sweep and into barbecue. Is this the place where the pass is done? Hung around the outside? I don't think so. Savalainen holds strong there. That's going to bring Jardier back into the fray. That's going to bring Martin Lawrence back into the fray. Defensive line all the way over, trying to get the biggest run through sunset they can. Single file, excellent close quarters racing here.
I mean, that looks like it's going to be the overtaking position of the day. You get that huge run up along the start-finish straight where you can just absolutely optimize the slipstream that you're getting. And you saw there how much Barrier used that slipstream to their advantage. I mean, Salvalainen at one point was quite far, and then by the time he actually got to the first corner, Barrier was almost neck and neck with them, looking for the outside. And then it's just a case of how much momentum can you pull through. And in this case, Salvalainen just had that slight edge. They were on the inside. So by the time they both got to that final left-hander in the sector there, Salvalainen was just slightly ahead, able to push Barrier out, but some really good close racing. And this is the thing, it's like you said, it brought back Jardier and Martin Lawrence into the fight. And this is the thing, if you try and set up a move starting on that start-finish straight into turns 1 and 2 there, you've got to make sure that you're getting through and that you're staying ahead and optimizing it, because the second you start to set up that move, you're slowing yourself down, and if you don't pull it off, you are automatically in danger from behind. I mean, Jardier there had almost got alongside Barrier as we're coming back onto the start finish straight again. Just look at this slipstream. Barrier is just flying, and going to this time look for the inside of Salvalainen coming into the sector 1, and there it is, straight through, straight over. Can Salvalainen maybe bite back here? Looks like Barrier overshot the corner slightly, and now Salvalainen on the switchback on the inside, able to push Barrier to the outside, and with a slight bit of contact managed to stay ahead. But what a move from Salvalainen. Let Barrier have it on that second turn, but has now done the switchback, where Barrier has not given up yet, going towards the outside of sunset. Jardier in this battle as well, cutting off Barrier's options, and now again looking for inside here. Salvoline and Barrier are still almost next to each other. It looks like, though, Salvoline may have just escaped that battle and stayed ahead. But, oh my gosh, Jesse Lee, what a fight we've just seen there.
Yeah, and it's about to get a little bit more hectic. Alessio Mellis, Max Payne, Vanko Dimitrov, and Wouter Billen are closing in. That's how slow Savalainen has been recently. A look down the inside. Leacock from Martin Lawrence on Jardier. Nothing doing. Pulls back out in line. Doesn't want to create an accident here. And how close was it? This is how close it was. Oh, got a little loose there. Probably, I thought he backed out on purpose. Turns out the CLR driver didn't back out on purpose. His car gave up grip there and forced him to do exactly that. Samir Foch, the green Ferrari, who just flashed in front of your screen there a little bit. That car now up to P2 and sailing away. It was 1.5 seconds the gap a few laps ago. And with the battles for P2, it is now a 4-second gap. Martin Lawrence still trying to make that move and has some unfamiliar cars in his mirror now. Alessio Mellis, Max Payne have caught up, and this battle continues down into turn number 2. Barrier trying to go around the long way again. Tried it the first time, tried the undercut the second time, and tried this time, and none of those have worked. The defense of Savalainen has been strong here so far.
Barrier, you can tell, is trying to get this move done much quicker now, and that's exactly what they need to do, because what was originally a fight between 4 cars towards the front is now going all the way down to 11th place. You can see Seminara is just at the back of this huge train of cars, and it's because Jesse, Barrier and Salvoline have been fighting every single lap, and it's just slowing everyone down, even them and even the people behind too. So Barrier is going to want to clear Salvoline as quickly as possible here, because if they don't do it in the next couple of laps, they're going to start getting a lot of pressure from behind, because these cars, they may be waiting now, but they're not going to wait forever. And the example is Max Payne here, putting the pressure on Mellis, trying to look for the outside, but not going to be able to make it stick. Goes really wide around the hairpin there, and you can just see falling behind now. But these cars, you see, they're not going to wait forever. And if Barrier doesn't clear Salvoline, they're going to start putting pressure on Barrier, and they're going to try and have a go themselves.
It certainly is. Whoever makes the biggest mistake is going to drop to the back of this train. Look at this train of cars that is now forming. I was trying to figure out who that Mercedes is in the line back there. That is Vanko Dimitrov, who is clawing their way back into this battle as well. Keep in mind, the Mad Panda car was involved in the earlier incident, but because of this huge train, have found themselves right back into the fray inside the top 10, and realistically could be looking at a top 5 spot, pending how much damage the car has. But based on the pace, I would imagine almost none at all. Sort of backs up the Hugo Merrill's theory that car wasn't very damaged at all. That was the strategy play to get that car track position late into the race. But we flash you back to P3 and look at the queue here. Jonas Savalainen's rear wing of his Mercedes. Looking back at Barrier, still yet to be able to pull off the pass, has gotten by him, but not fully by him a couple of times early on into this race. Jardier falling back just a little bit again for the second time. That tends to happen, or seems to happen, whenever these two get single file for a lap or so, but very much still in play. Line of cars now going as far as the eye can see. Folks, how dare we be so rude earlier on? We didn't say welcome in, and to all of our lovely people in chat this week, we do apologize for that. It was just so exciting. We lost ourselves a little bit. So wherever you are in the world, we hope that you're well, and thanks for spending a little bit of your Friday evening with us here on RCI TV. Tim Peck, we've been treated to an absolute gem tonight so far.
It has been some phenomenal racing so far, and you can tell that it's going to continue. Salvoline about to come onto the start-finish straight now, coming through the final corner, and Barrier already setting up their move. We'll see if the slipstream is enough for Barrier this time to get alongside. Remember that by the time they get to turn 2 or turn 1, depending on who you are and what you want to call it here, they need to be alongside each other if Barrier wants to get the move done. Again, they're looking for the inside. This time it looks like, though, they've got to the brake at the right time.
Oh, no!
Still trying to return on the switchback, but accidentally hits Barrier, knocking them off course. That's going to cost Salvoline 2 places. And luckily, balancing Barrier, they're just going to be able to hold it together for Jardier and Lawrence. But still, Salvoline there with that slight mistake, catching the rear of Barrier, making sure that they don't get that unlawful overtake, has now cost themselves 2 positions. This is exactly what I was talking about, Jesse Lee. You cannot afford to make a mistake when there is this much of a train behind you, because if you even have a slight little mishap on track, a slight bit of knock to your momentum, you're going to be losing 1 to 3 places easily.
Well, that's exactly what happened there. A little bit of contact, lost 3 spots. Martin Lawrence continuing to look on Jardier, trying to go around the outside. I don't know how much that move will work, but can get that done if you can get far enough alongside of Leacock, but nothing doing this time. Very feisty racing between those two. Of course, Jardier was attacking Barrier as well, and I have a different take on what happened through Crowthorne that last time, and my thought, very simply put, is I think Barrier knew what Savalainen was going to do and tried to just basically locked it down on what would have been Savalainen's apex. It shouldn't have been Barrier's apex because he should have went really wide. But knowing what Savalainen was trying to do, he basically parked it on the exit of Crowthorne. A brilliant move, if you ask me. Wasn't expected from Savalainen or by Savalainen, I don't think. It got into him there, thinking there was a lane. The lane closed up, and quite wisely so. Juna just backed out of it there, but that will frustrate you as a driver. You feel like that was not very sporting. I don't know. I'm going to leave it up to you. What do you think? Was that very sporting of Barrier to do that? Close the door like that?
I don't like being put on the spot like this, Jesse, but I do have to say I think it's one of those things where it comes down to personal opinion of the drivers in this situation. Of course, if Salvaline here feels like maybe that was very unsporting.
Oh, Martin Lawrence!
Oh, I'm sorry, I completely missed that. What happened? Did Lawrence lose it there?
You're going to see a replay here. Martin Lawrence just about goes for a big spin for the second time today, albeit a different corner. Just about loses it on the curb. I think we can say without confidence the CLR Audi does not like hitting the curbs. Remember, they almost got into Jardier and Leacock after hitting a curb and going sideways. And that time, that almost ended badly again. Thankfully, able to save it in what I suspect was Clubhouse Bend. But as you were saying, Tim Peck, sporting move?
I think, again, like I said, it comes down to what the driver individually feels at the time. To each of they're taking a lot of curve as they try and take on Max Payne. They're going to try and get this overtake done. Still neck and neck. A bit of a tap there sends Max Payne off the track here, and they're going to actually enter the pits after that. I'm wondering if maybe they were almost pushed into the pits there and not trying to swerve back onto the track. But Dimitrov going to gain that position from that situation. But going back to what I was saying about the Salvaline and Barrier thing, comes down to the thing about what the driver feels. I think Salvaline obviously is going to feel very robbed there, but at the end of the day, it's the racing that we ask to see as viewers, isn't it? Is we want to see people really pushing it to the limit. Barrier shutting off the corner. I mean, it's how you defend. It's what you're going to try and do. As this is a replay. What's happening here? Is this Jardier and Martin Lawrence? I think Lawrence may have overtaken Jardier at some point and gotten ahead. That was probably happened a couple of corners ago, but either way, you can see now that Martin Lawrence is now leading Jardier on the track. Salvaline still sitting behind them. But going back to what I was saying on this original point, I'm just going to have to wrap this one up a lot quicker, Jesse. But I think it's one of those moves where it just comes down to racing at the end of the day. I think probably not 100% sporting, but I don't think it was bad sportsmanship. I just think it was very aggressive sportsmanship in that Barrier was really racing Salvaline.
Well, you can see this is from the lap prior. This is the CLR car who was very clearly behind Jardier earlier in the race, now in front, and that was done and dusted before Ingwe. So sometime through Mineshaft, the Crocodiles, and Cheetah on the last lap, this position changed hands, and I don't think it had to do with contact. Otherwise, we would have caught it on the camera. So maybe a mistake by Jardier is the only thing I could think of. Mistakes by Jardier are so few and far in between, but I can tell you this, not giving up at all is Jaroslav Hanzik in 5th place now, but staying very nice and tight on the back of Martin Lawrence's machine. Two very different race cars here going at it and putting on quite a show. They are falling off the back of Valentin Barrier, though, I must say. 2.5 seconds the gap between Barrier and Lawrence. A couple of other news pieces to keep you up to date with. Max Payne, who was borderline forced off the track in Cheetah, had that long run and came in down to the pit lane. That might have been strategic based on who they were racing with. We've seen Max do that before, but unfortunately, they were also speeding in the pit lane, a stop and go 30, and they have since left the racetrack. They didn't actually make it out of pit lane. The frustration from the Lamborghini camp.
That is a shame for them as well to pick up that penalty, but Billen here trying to go for a move round Dimitrov here. Dimitrov holding on and pushing him to the side. Again, a slight bit of contact from the Mercedes driver, and that's just going to help Billen to come all the way through in that Honda right now. And you can see they've just got ahead before we get to the hairpin corner, and Dimitrov is going to have to tuck behind for now. Do they have anything to answer back with? That's my question here, because it already looks like they're really starting to fall off the back, and I'm wondering if the tap between them actually has almost slowed down Dimitrov a bit there and lost their chance at really striking him back in the corner like we've seen from a lot of the other drivers. Because the thing is with Kyalami, Jesse, one of the things I actually quite like about it is if you get the move done, you're not free, because the way the corners are set up here, if someone overtakes you, as long as they keep up their momentum and you keep up your momentum, you can continue that fight for 5 or 6 corners, which is what we've seen so far, as the penalties now are starting to come through from what I imagine is the start of the race as well, and that's going to start affecting pit strategies as well and seeing what they decide to do for the race. But right now, in terms of pitting, who I'm looking at is Hugo Morales. They've obviously served their pit stop, so whenever these drivers that haven't at the front 15 decide to come in, I want to know exactly where Hugo is going to come out.
I think that's the $1,000,000 question. I don't think you'll see him inside the top 5, though I have been wrong about that before. But keep in mind, where they started outside the top 10, they might have a shot at a top 10 spot to at least make this thing interesting at the end. Keep in mind, George Boothby still has to be clean throughout the duration of this race, has a 5-second lead, and it's growing to Samir Foch in front. Interesting tidbit about those two. George Boothby has the knack of getting attached to drivers and having them teach him how to drive those cars. We saw it a couple of seasons ago with the Porsche. We saw him hanging out with Malinowski, who most people revere as one of the best Porsche drivers that there is in ACC. And Boothby got up to speed quite easily and started competing with Matthew Malinowski. And now we've seen something very similar, Samir Foch in the pit lane. George Boothby has been hanging out with Samir Foch. You can catch him over on his stream, and has been learning a lot from Samir, I think, and has taken his Ferrari game to the next level. George has been questioning if he's a Ferrari kind of person. I think he might be. He certainly has enjoyed a lot of success in it. A couple of cars in, obviously Foch, but Vanko Dimitrov has also pitted. The penalties coming in kind of fast and heavy here, as we would have expected. These are all from lap 1, unless otherwise stated. Racing incident between the 44 and the 22. 5-second penalty for car 9 for avoidable contact with car 13. Warning for car 22 for not holding brakes after an incident. Drive-through penalty for car 977 for taking out car 911. Position not returned. 5-second penalty for car 71, as you see the 977 penalty there, deemed to be the cause of the turn 2 lap 1 incident. 5-second penalty for car 71 for pushing the 488 off track and gaining a lasting advantage. And a racing incident between the 9, the 13, the 666, and the 71. That was also for the turn 2 incident on the start. All of the ancillary contact deemed racing incident. Racing incident between the 180 and the 75, that on lap 3. Racing incident between the 171 and the 72 on lap 4. Racing incident between the 100 and the 39 on lap 4. Racing incident between the 172 on lap 7. These two need to get a room. Racing incident between the 100 and the 72. Oh, excuse me. Warning for car 100 for avoidable contact with the 72 on lap 10.
Yes! I'm 90% sure I saw this, and we're going to have a replay to see it again. It looks like Charlier trying to enter the pits has gone straight into the wall. And you can see they caught the curb, and it sent them flying into the wall there. They're now in the pit lane, but that is not going to be good for Jardier. They've probably sped into the pits there, which is going to give them a penalty as well when they finally get out. But either way, that's going to be very costly. And that was a very quick contact with the wall as well. That's going to be quite a bit of damage. So the fight that looked great for Jardier, a potential podium for them maybe, has now gone
Savalainen's crashed
completely
as
down
well.
the drain. Oh no, they've
Oh
gone
my
straight on!
goodness! Oh my goodness! Judah Savalainen with the rocket status down into Crowthorne. That has all the makings of a internet connectivity issue. And the 100 has exited. Jardier, I think, obviously crashed, but I'm pretty sure also sped into the pit lane. We're about to find out.
Oh, this is going to be such a hit if they have got a stop.
What?
30. They
What?
didn't. There's no way. The speed they were approaching
Excuse
that
me?
line was ridiculous. There is no way they managed to get that under. All I can wonder is that maybe the contact slowed them down enough, but still, they were flying into
Is
the
there
pit.
any way, broadcaster Stewie, that we can see that crash again and also into the pit lane? Because how on earth did Jardier have the wherewithal to have that huge off into Cheetah, come into the pit lane, and somehow not speed? All three of us in this commentary box were convinced that Jardier sped down into the pit lane, but we have all been wrong. Apparently, we were expecting a stop and go. We didn't get one. And as our broadcaster looks for that, I will finish up the penalties for you. Racing incident on lap 11 between the 966 and the 44, and racing incident between the 183 and the 44 on lap 13. This is the crash, and coming down into the pit lane. Let's see. That speed is 71, I think, right? That's in kilometers. That would also be in kilometers. Is this speeding? Let's see. Well, regardless of what we think, the game has decided it isn't speeding, and he's in first gear. He would be on the limiter, but it says 65 and a 50. So we were right. There is a speed difference, but the game did not want to give him a penalty. Now, there used to be a mechanic in ACC where as long as you were on the limiter, you could speed into pit lane. 1.8 threw that out the window. You had to be at speed at the line. Maybe they've reintroduced that mechanic where as long as you're on the pit limiter in first gear, regardless of speed, it doesn't count as speeding. That's all I can think about. Tim Peck, do you have any theories, or shall I break out the tinfoil hats?
I don't know. I'm wondering if maybe that's just a slight desync between the car and the actual speed that was going. I don't know. To me, that looks like Jardier completely sped over the line, and all the facts point to it as being Jardier speeding over the line there. Either way, I think Jardier will be counting their lucky stars tonight that they did not get a stop-and-go penalty, because if that was up to us, I know we'd have definitely given it to them in that situation.
Interesting additional data. We're being told by Tom Hecken Bryant that the speed on pit lane goes by the rear axle, not the front part of the race car. And that's why that doesn't count as speeding, because he was going 50 kph on the back axle when it crossed the line. I never knew that. I always assumed the transponder was in the front half of the car, and that's where it is. But apparently here it is done in the rear axle of the car, the rear section of the car is where the transponder is. Now that is very interesting. And I have no, first of all, how does Tom know that, first of all, Tim?
Well, Tom knows a lot of things, and thank you very much, Tom, for that information. But either way, not to go against what Tom's saying here, but even with that information come to light, I almost refuse to believe that that car was going 50 when the rear axle crossed the line. And I know they're braking, and don't get me wrong, the brakes on these cars so amazing and powerful. But the angle we had from Stewie, the car was halfway across the line already, and that rear axle was basically about to cross it. I refuse to believe that even with that in mind, that car was going 50 by the time it crossed the line. But thank you, Tom, for that information, because that is very interesting to know. It's just one of those things that Tom comes out with that is so interesting to hear. Samir Foch overtaking. Is that Richardson? Ashley Richardson. They've just overtaken there. Was that a blue flag? It was Ashley Richardson. So Samir Foch just getting through some places here. And what I'm looking at right now, Jesse, change the subject slightly, is the fact that Hugo Morales, who pitted after lap 1 in this race, is currently sitting 11th, just behind Barriere, who, when Barriere pitted, correct me if I'm wrong, were they not on that podium in 3rd?
Yeah, they sure were. Barrier with a actually no, they still might come out in P3. I'm not entirely sure. We're gonna have to see. More cars are gonna have to come in. In fact, they are. This will give us a better indication. Martin Lawrence down pit lane with Alessio Mellis. Those cars well up inside the top 10. Martin Lawrence, of course, was in P4. The CLR car down and away. Looked like a completely normal stop to me. And there goes Foch, I'm pretty sure, through. Here comes Barrier. Yes, so everything will come out very copacetic, except for Martin Lawrence speeding in the pit lane, stop and go 30, and CLR, they have parked that car. Martin Lawrence will likely take no further part, as another speeding penalty has caused another retirement today. Jardier, after that huge crash coming into pit lane, not speeding apparently, is now out in P9. They do have that Mellis that is right behind him now, might be, but up into P9. So not a total loss for Jardier. And there's a lot of theories going around. Cheers to Michael Redford in chat, who is trying to help us dissect what's going on with the pit lane speed. There will be somebody out there in our viewership tonight who will be testing to see if that old thing where if you're on the limiter, it doesn't matter how fast you're going, because I have been told by all accounts that that actually was a few kph over the limit at the line. Regardless, the car was fully through and they were still over. Tom Bryan has told me that yes, there is a few kph leeway before you get a penalty. I don't know who to believe. I'm getting the tinfoil.
I mean, you can see there, this is them about to cross the line and still going 62. So
Oh, look at that shot.
I
Look
think
at that shot.
they've got to be speeding. There is no way they didn't speed
Martin
over
Lawrence was
the line. Oh, it's Martin.
absolutely speeding. Yeah, that was Martin Lawrence's CLR car. He
Oh, okay.
clocked it going 62 kph in a 50 zone when the back axle touched the line. And it doesn't matter who you are, that is speeding. And that has caused the retirement of a car who was up inside the top 5. Simone Simonara in the 12. Haven't talked about them much today, but finds themselves embroiled in a battle with Wouter Billen over the final spot inside the top 10.
I'm waiting for Beefy to hit, and I've been holding on this entire time. I just want to know, of course, they're going to be out way ahead of Hugo, but the question, oh, actually, are they coming to the pits as I speak now? But we're going to see where they come out exactly just how far ahead, because regardless, Hugo's done an absolutely phenomenal job at the beginning here. Is that you checking to see if Boothby possibly sped into the pit lane just because it's caught off so many people, but I think Boothby was most likely fine there. Either way, such a great race from George so far, and it's just been showcasing why they are leading this championship, because they started on pole, they've led every single lap, and other than that one fight with Salvador Island from the beginning, they've not been in too much trouble, just shown up today and put out those laps, which is exactly what I wanted to see them do, and what they needed to do. They just needed to keep it safe and do their own thing. And what I would have been interested to see is, let's say Salvador Island had got that overtake on around the first couple of corners, is how much Boothby would have really pushed it, because there is a limit. And Hugo, of course, getting caught up in that turn 1 instant really showcases what could happen in these final races, because let's say this is the other way around, Jesse, and that could have been the championship fight we were talking about for first place. Instead, it's, of course, can Hugo do something to bring in more points? But let's just switch their roles for a second and have Boothby get caught up in that first turn accident. That could have been drastic for George.
Yeah, it could. I thought that it could have been quite poorly for him, because I was pretty sure Savalainen was completely by him, and I think that is what happened, but George was able to fight back, and you wonder what could have happened had he been stuck behind Savalainen. Would he have pressed, or would he have just tried to fall in line and probe for weakness? And obviously you saw what happened with Foch and all the other cars behind them with Barrier, Merrills, and Jardier, of course, and that's what George Boothby would have been in effectively at that point, all fighting, and you never know. But George, calm, cool, and collected under pressure, able to get the lead back on the very first lap of the race, and set sail a little bit, a nice pit stop. And while we're talking about pit stops, it is quite an awkward pit lane. We don't really talk about it much because it's not the tightest pit lane in the world, surely, but that run out of the crocodiles and then into Cheetah, it kind of throws you off because you're so focused about not taking too much inside curb of Cheetah or going too wide either. You want to hit it the exact perfect amount, of course, as the 488 has stopped in Clubhouse Bend. It's after sunset here, and this car's went off the track. Oh, yes, hooked the
Oh,
curb on the exit of Sunset, span around, hit the inside wall before Clubhouse Bend, and that car has not moved and I believe has returned to pit lane. Michael Herman has retired that Ferrari. A lot of attrition here today as well. But no, the pit lane is deceptive here, and it has created its share of big incidents thus far. George Boothby back out in front of the race, makes the pass on Edvardsen on the track. Edvardsen still has a pit stop to give, but it has not troubled George Boothby and the number 800 back out in front.
Edvardsen to me moved over there as well, so I'm wondering what their tactic is here because they've not pitted. They've still got 23 minutes left to decide when they want to do that pit stop. No, sorry, it was 22 because of course, obviously you've got to do it in the pit window. But I'm interested to know what the tactic here. And actually, I was wondering, Jesse, because every single race so far, we have seen people hitting on the exact halfway point. It hits 30 minutes, and just either side of it is when everyone was pulling into the pits at more or less the same time. Today, obviously, the instant turn one provided some early pit stops, but looking towards now, George Boothby pitted around the 24-minute mark. You've still got Edvardsen out on track, and a lot of people actually pitted around that 25-26-minute mark. Was there some tactic to go slightly longer today, or is that just complete randomness that they stayed out on track? I'm wondering if, with all the chaos that was happening towards the pit lane at the time, and the fact that there was probably quite a lot of drivers grouped up with each other, is that's what caused the huge differential in when people pits here? Were they just trying to stay out of each other's way? Because you said this is a tricky pit stop to navigate into, and that's the case with a huge train of drivers that were originally so close together. It would have been quite hard navigating who goes into the pits when, because if two cars ducked in towards the same time, that in itself can be quite hard to judge when you need brakes. You don't go right into the rear of the car ahead of you.
I don't think it was random, Tim. What I think Edvardsen's doing is you could pit in the halfway point and be thrust back into whatever battle you were previously embroiled upon when most of the competitors decided to come down pit lane. What I think Edvardsen's doing is quite the opposite of that, running in clean air. Normally, we talk about pitting really early in a race to get yourself out of traffic. You could also do that this way as well, where once the race has sort of split up, you can do the reverse, and I think that's what Edvardsen's doing, hoping to go really long, have a lot of laps, not in traffic, and maybe one up the competitors that pitted early. It is very possible to do that. Huge crash here, and a move that was ill-fated to say the least, and oh my goodness, cars rejoining right there. Very scary moment. I believe that was Thomas and Simonara involved in that accident. Several other cars were coming through. Maybe that was Billen or Dimitriov, one of the two. But that was not great. They will resume this battle. A little bit of contact there. Simonara back into the back of Thomas. These two are not going to be on each other's Christmas card list at this rate.
Seminara going off there as well. That is going to split them up for now, and it just gives Thomas that extra bit of breathing room where they can go through a corner without having to worry about what Seminara is going to be doing next. But still in the battle, these two are going to continue this. And what I'm looking at right now, Jesse, is Hugo Morales. They're currently in 5th, so that is where they've come out after the pit stops. Of course, after Edvardsen pits, they're going to be all the way up in 4th place. From what was a lap 1 pit stop, they've done a phenomenal job at keeping up that pace and recovering to where they are now. However, you've got to consider the flip side of this. They pitted on the very first lap, take a fresh set of tyres because of that, and also it just gets them out that little bit quicker. But the problem with that is, Jesse, is that they're going to be coming towards the end of this race on very, very dead tyres. And if everyone else has opted taking fresh tyres, they're just going to be completely losing out to everyone else. Seminara here, looking to make the move happen now. Gone to the inside and broken a lot later than Thomas, as Thomas almost there, just misjudging it. But Seminara, losing grip, is off the track now, parked at the side of the road on turn 2. they're not recovering over. Is that them giving up with the race? It is. They have decided to retire from the race after not making a move on Thomas there, and Thomas going to be able to breathe. Oh, of course they had a drive through. Okay, so Thomas there going to just be able to breathe for a little bit. But going back to what I was saying, I'm looking at Hugo's times right now. Earlier, Jesse, very fast, keeping up with the pace of the front runners and had the pace to get into that top 5 where they are right now. But now I'm looking at their lap times, and the last couple of lap times have been struggling quite a lot. And let's just say it wouldn't surprise me if come 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes time, Jardier was starting to get a lot closer to Hugo. Maybe not in striking distance, but definitely closing that gap. And I'm not sure Hugo's going to be able to climb much higher 4th place here.
No, but I'll tell you something. I was questioning very early on if Hugo was going to be able to get inside the top 5. I thought a top 10 certainly, but they have used that early pit stop to great effect here, getting inside the top 5. They are losing time to Barrier, though, I'm afraid to say, and I don't know what's going to happen with this battle that's right behind him by just about 8 seconds. This is Jardier looking back at Alessio Mellis for P6. Of course, Jardier had that longer pit stop because they had the damage. They somehow evaded a pit stop speeding penalty. We're kind of laughing to ourselves because we're not sure how that happened, but it's not our steward's jobs to enforce that, really. So there will not be any investigation into that. That's ACC's job. And what's that British saying you lot have? Don't wake a sleeping policeman or something like that?
Excuse me? I'm not sure I've ever heard that. I think there's some sort of phrase like that. Don't wake policeman. Yeah, actually, no, I think, yeah, that might be the phrase, of course. I'm clearly not very British at this point, 'cause I don't know it.
Well, Jardier took his shoes off, and when he came into the house, is all I'm saying. He was very quiet, not waking a sleeping policeman here this evening, and was going to be able to get away with that one, but now embroiled in that fight. Of course, the bigger penalty for Jardier, of course, was the huge off he had where he smashed the wall exiting Cheetah. Going to be a long pit stop, regardless of how much speeding did or did not occur there. Alessio Mellis, though, still trying to get back in front of them. The nearest battle that they have, Samir Foch is right on the back of Dan Edvardsen for P2. Edvardsen still has to make that pit stop. Foch is able to make that pass cleanly and gets through. But riding on the lip spoiler here for Alessio Mellis's Ferrari, getting a really good look at the back of the 39 McLaren, and not quite able to hang with him on the straights, I would reckon, but still not really much daylight between the two of them.
Going to be a battle towards the end, and we've seen so many great performances from Jardier across this championship. I'm thinking all the way back to, I believe it was race 2, when everyone decided to take that fresh set of tyres. Jardier decided against it and went, you know what, I'm going to value track position in this situation, and ended up, because of that, finding themselves in, I think, a 2nd place overall, able to jump Hugo and I believe someone else as well. May have been Salvalainen at the time, but it was such a phenomenal performance, and it really showcased how great a driver and consistent Jardier can be, because they were on a very old set of tyres and everyone else on the fresh set, and you could see they were struggling to defend, but they did manage to hold on. So it's been great to see performances like that across the season. Of course, Barrier as well has been one of those drivers that has just completely outperformed other people in terms of consistency, and that is why they are finding themselves where they are in the championship right now, is because of consistency. And it's why George Boothby as well is at the top of this championship, because they've come in, they had their drop round for round 1, which they didn't compete in. They came in round 2, Jesse, and just absolutely dominated the competition. Not so much at Spa, had a bit of a struggle there, but still brought home a great result, coming in 3rd place. And it's just helped them stay miles ahead of the championship, and it's because of that that they are at the top here. And Hugo, I've got to give it to them. I thought qualifying in 15th place, that is not the performance that they wanted to have today, and it's really going to damage their fight for the championship, which it has. But to go from 15th all the way up into 5th with that incident they get caught up in as well, it's been a beautiful performance. And to me, Hugo and Morales, if they join in for this championship next season, they are going to be my driver to watch, because I reckon they could come in soon with the championship title, because they have just been absolutely phenomenal across this entire Friday so far.
Well, Merrill's, who exploded on the scene just a few seasons ago, really, for us, is a champion. I don't remember what series Hugo won, but he is already a champion in RCI competition and going up against some really heavy hitters in this series. Didn't start out as auspicious as they would have wanted for round number one, surely. And they've had a couple of low points. The last round, of course, in the Americas was a bit of an issue, as well as the start in Australia. But beyond that, it's been pretty darn good. Of course, all culminating in a brilliant race at Spa-Francorchamps. So Hugo has been a delight to absolutely have on the grid, and I think more than anything, learning a little bit about what it's like to race against George Boothby and Samir Foch in a championship format like this, and has done the absolute best of it most of the time. The only problem is that George Boothby's here, and George Boothby, he nary loses a race, does he? I mean, his worst finish, according to this stat sheet, is second place. Apparently, he did finish second at Spa-Francorchamps, and when you're talking about your worst race being a second place, hardly anything to complain about, really.
Especially since that's the only race they placed anywhere but first. This will be, we've had, what, 5 races this season, and this will be their 3rd race win of the season. They didn't compete in the first race, so really this is going to be 3 out of 4 races that George Boothby wins, assuming they manage to hold it together, which, I mean, they just have to drive fairly easy from now on. Bosch isn't a problem for them right now, but I tell you what, Barrier is a problem for Foch. They've managed to close this gap right up the fight for second place here. Barrier has been flying around Kyalami since this race started. Now Foch has to worry about defending from them yet again. We've seen a couple of scraps between these two before, notably through that first sector is where they tend to fight each other. Can Barrier do it again now for the end of the race? They have 12 minutes to find this move. It took them about 15 minutes before to get it done. Can they do it again? They're certainly going to have a jolly good go at it, and now lining up just behind Foch, coming into that start-finish straight. You're going to want to see what does Barrier do, and what is Foch going to do? How hard do they defend this?
Keep in mind, before the pit stop, this was not a battle that we thought was ever going to happen. Foch enjoyed a 5+ second lead on Valentin Barrier, second to third place respectively. So after that pit stop, Barrier's been shot out of a cannon. I think made up some time on the pit lane as well, but also has ran the gap down to absolutely nothing. Taking a look around the outside of Crowthorne, that might just be a setup through the Juski sweep. No, it is not, as they're still nose to tail, as tight as you could possibly be between the two of them, fighting over second place. And you may wonder, it's late in the season, neither driver is going to win the championship. What is the point? Well, they are 4th and 5th in the championship points, Barrier over Samir Foch, so that might be a little bit of it, but also never overlook driver psychology. You can't do it. Barrier has an opportunity to beat one of the greats, Samir Foch, and Samir Foch has an opportunity to say that they beat Valentin Barrier, one of the greats, as well. So you take that into consideration, and nobody wants to lose. Funny how that works.
I mean, the best experience is fighting the best of the best, and these two are some of the best when it comes to sim racing. The amount of times I've seen Samir Foch and Valentin Barrier doing some absolutely beautiful performances on the track, I can't even count anymore. It seems like every single race I've commentated on, Jesse, I've been talking about one of these two drivers at some point, and this to me is, okay, fine, they're not taking home the championship victory, but who cares at this point? You've got a huge opportunity just to race. It's what they came here to do. They came here to race in this championship. They're going to race. And like you said, to be racing each other, that would be a huge achievement for either of them to be able to say, I beat you out on the track here. So for me, this fight between Barrier and Foch is absolutely one to pursue. And if I was either of those drivers right now, I would be giving it my absolute all to prove that I am better, especially they're looking to come into the next season of Friday Championship here, Jesse. You want that psychological edge over the opponent. You want to say, I got the better end of you at the end of last season. I'm going to bring it even harder this season. And that is the sort of motivation you basically want to carry with you across the seasons, because it comes into it. Obviously, George Boothby is one that really takes that on. They win a championship, and then they go into the next season like, okay, I've won this championship. Let's see who's going to put the pressure on me this time around. And that's why I think Hugo is going to be one to watch next season as well, is because they've been able to say, I've beaten George Boothby out on track. I've given the fight to George Boothby out on track. Here's what I can do, and next season I can definitely bring it better. So for me, the fight between Barrier versus Foch is just a showcase of what's to come the next time we're here at the Friday Championship.
And oh, by the way, everything that we've just said about that fight for second can be said about this fight for fifth place as well, between Jardier and Alessio Mellis, two fantastic drivers in the ACC sim space. I think we can all agree, and neither one of them really wants to lose this battle here late in the race. Talk about taking bragging rights in the next season. It's bragging rights in general. It's a shot in the arm. Maybe you weren't competing for the championship this season. Things often don't go your way. There's always the element of luck in a championship. That's why we ask ourselves the what if. And beyond that, you only really have the last race. There'll obviously be a few weeks off here on the Friday champ for a lot of these drivers. They will return, and the last thing that they'll have in their memory bank for the next several weeks will be, oh, well, I beat Valentin Barrier. Oh, I beat Jardier in this race. So that, like you said, it gives you a shot in the arm. It gives you more confidence going in to the next season as well. And a lot of people would probably say, does it really though? But the answer is yes, absolutely. I'm going to tell you something, folks.
Oh, 100%.
I remember every single good driver I've ever beaten on the racetrack. Every single one of them. And 99.99 repeating percent, I only beat them that one time. That's all that matters. I beat them that one time, and that's the only race I recall.
I mean, I've got to 100% agree. I'm going back to some championships that I've raced in at this point. I've got a very close friend who actually taught me how to race on the racetrack, and I'll never forget the first day I beat them out on track. I swear from that point onwards, I was a whole new driver. I was used to trailing behind them almost a second a lap every lap. We went to Monza once, which is my best racetrack. I'm sure a lot of people can say the same as well. And I ended up getting the better end of them. And from that point onwards, every time I approached them on the racetrack, it was like, I know I can beat you now. I've done it before once. And it's the same for these drivers. If you've done it once, you can certainly do it again. So it is that, like you say, it's the shot in the arm that keeps going, and every time you get that slight mental win, it really helps you into the next season as, oh my gosh, these two stood very close to the wall there. Barrier got a great job on slipstream there, coming up to Foch, and it's going to be clear by the time they get up to turn 2, but Foch still on the inside, going to fight back, almost making contact around the second corner there. Barrier is going to be pushed out to the side. Foch going to keep it together, both giving each other enough respect and fact to not turn this into a casualty, but it's going to be that Barrier won't be able to make this overtake. Foch going to stay ahead as they now head down towards Sunset, but again the slipstream pulling the Audi across and forward, trying to get alongside that Ferrari, and not quite able to be alongside as they get ever so close, but just avoiding a bad bit of contact there, and Foch still leading Barrier second place as it stands.
It's hard racing, but it's fair racing between these two. Thinking about going 2x2 into the S's, thinks better of it. I think the better line was done by Barrier, but it doesn't matter. Samir Foch got the run, absolutely slammed it into the S's, and will be very clear, several meters, in fact, all the way up to Liakoff this time. He's had a little bit of a taste, a little nibble, has Valentin Barrier. He knows what he must do. He got so close going through Crowthorne, he must have thought he had him going through the Jukeski sweep, but into Barbecue, the left-hander, it was all Samir Foch able to clear him again, and then in Sunset, danger averted there. Barrier didn't want to win it that way, would have probably got a penalty regardless, but wants to race this battle clean. There is the racer's code, after all, of what you can and can't get away with, and I don't think turning somebody with about 6 minutes in the race is looked very nicely upon. The lap cars out of the way. By the way, Edvardsen had come to pit lane a little bit ago after falling out of the podium positions as expected, and your guess is as good as mine on if that strategy worked. They're in P11. They are running down the 75 Audi in 10th place, so maybe if Edvardsen can get a top 10 out of today, you could call that really long overcut a success. Contact here between Barrier and Foch. Foch gave him room, Berrier needed a little extra, but doesn't have the line, and they fall back single file through Barbecue and down into Sunset again. That very, very tight line there by Berrier trying to get as close as possible, but might have hurt the exit speed as they're still single file. They're getting close with the contact. 4 minutes to go. You can only hope a peaceful resolution to this one.
Gonna get tight though. Barrier has been taking so much curb trying to keep up with Foch here, and we've seen already that this Audi really struggles as soon as it touches that curb, and it's been showing. Barrier has gone wide a couple of times on a lot of these corners. They've fallen off Foch for now, but they're still very close. They're just not in that striking range where they can really push themselves up the inside, which could give Foch a bit of time to just sit back and plan what they need to do next, because it's one thing trying to overtake someone, it's another thing making sure you get this defense perfect. And with 3 minutes and a half left, Jesse, Foch is going to want to make sure that they calculate every single move Barrier does so they can shut it down before it happens. And coming onto the start-finish straight again, you have to wonder, what does Barrier do? And if I've learned anything from watching it so far, Barrier is going to take the inside or the outside, whatever is given to them, and they will just throw themselves into that corner as hard as they can.
Close racing here. Final 3 minutes of the race. Final 3 minutes of the season. Trying the over-under is Berrier. Foch blocks that line. Impossible to get a run up through the Juski sweep, and a little bit too much curve that time from Berrier as they enter Barbecue and down onto the straight. But was that a really bad exit from Foch, allowing Berrier to go around the outside into Sunset? The sun has already set, by the way, 7:17 p.m. in sim time. Both cars, for my liking, got a pretty terrible sunset if we're being honest, but it didn't matter. They offset and they still remain single file as they head into the S's. 2.5 less minutes to go. Boothby enjoys a 16-second lead. That is more than good enough to see him crowned champion again of the Friday GT Sprint season here on RCI TV. Foch and Berrier fighting over what could, in theory, be a third place points position in the championship. We'll have to see how that works out. They're not concerned about that right now. For them, it's a one-on-one dogfight.
Barrier again just trying to look for a move around Foch. Foch, they're going very slow around the apex of the corner, but will still stay ahead, and it's because what they're trying to do right now is Foch is just trying to make sure that they get the best exit possible out of this corner, the final corner on the circuit. They need to make sure they get the better exit on Barrier so that they just have that extra bit of wiggle room, because what Barrier's going to do here is again get that slipstream. You can see Foch already covering the inside. They've picked where they want to be for turn 2 here. Barrier getting ever so close before swerving out. They're going to be neck and neck as they approach turn 2. A slight bit of contact, but Foch will stay ahead, and Barrier not able to swing around the outside this time. Foch just has to do this one more time when they go around the track, because I think Boothby will reach the line before the end of the race. So Foch just has to do it one more time. Can they do it though? Because, oh my gosh, Barrier has gone so close every single time, Jess.
Yeah, this is one of those times. I'm usually really good at reading how a driver feels by how they're driving the race car, but I'm unsure. I assume Foch is loving this. I'm assuming Berrier is a little frustrated here at maybe himself. Probably not Foch so much, but frustrated because there's been a couple of times where I thought Berrier had the move done. And maybe he is frustrated at Foch because Foch was the one boxing him out, but it's hard to read between these two right now, but it's brilliant stuff. I'm glad I'm in the commentary position and not in the cockpit for this as they come through Leacock. I will tell you this, it's going to be really close at the line. 20 seconds to go and one turn left to go. Ingwe, for your leader, you might get a little bit of free racing, an extra lap here. As the leader, George Boothby, comes to the line, and you will get one more lap. All of these drivers will get one more lap. Boothby over the line with 6 seconds left to go. This is not the end of the race for these two. They're going to go at it one more time.
Great news for Valentin Barrier here. Very bad news for Samir Foch. You can see them coming out the final corner, and Valentin is so much closer they have been on the previous lap. Do they have the momentum? I think they might do. You can see them get really close to the rear of Samir before they decide to pull out here. Will they be able to keep it together? It looks like they've gone a little too wide, but have they gone for the switch?
Oh, he's going for it!
They're trying to squeeze down the inside of turn 2, but they weren't able to get alongside. It was a brilliant play from Valentin, just trying something new on Samir Foch, but it has not worked out, and it's going to place him behind Samir coming through into sector 2 here. And I've got to say, I was not expecting Valentin Barrier to switch it up there, but I definitely should have been as they tried the switchback maneuver. Couldn't quite get it off though, and it looks like Samir Foch is going to have a huge edge as we approach the second half of this racetrack.
Wow, now this is incredible stuff. The last few turns are going to have one more shot up into Leacock, I would say, for Valentin Barrier. I'm unsure if he's going to be close enough. Certainly not like that. Running off the track, Samir Foch might be off the hook here. It has been 15 minutes of incredible defensive driving by Samir Foch, and it's had to be. He had to be pinpoint accurate, and he has just about done it. Just about keeping it on the road in the low light conditions you find here. I don't think Barrier is going to have any more ammunition. But look at this. George Boothby, his worst finish, second on the season, and he's a winner here again at Kyalami and wins Season 7 of the GT Sprint Challenge here on RCI TV. Here they come, Samir Foch to the line. Valentin Barrier got back to him, but not alongside him. Samir Foch, an excellent defensive drive, P2. Barrier third. Hugo Merrils will come home fourth and secure what might be P2 in the championship. Jardier also outlasting Alessio Mellis there for P5 after the contact. Still a very nice top five. Mellis, Wouter-Billen, Dimitrov, Thomas, and Porsche in the 75. That is your top 10, and I can exhale finally.
That has been a phenomenal race. I've got to say, for final races in a championship, that has been one of the best performances from a lot of these drivers. Everyone in that top 10, I was going to say top 6, but everyone in that top 10 has performed so well to the point they deserve the positions they got. Valentin Barrier done an amazing job of overtaking and just being an all-out brute on track, fighting for that position. Samir Foch done a brilliant drive as well and some amazing defending at the end. Of course, George Boothby, as always, with some amazing pace. But even Jardier going into the wall just before they entered the pits, having to repair that, they still managed to hold on to fifth, which is exactly where they started. And Hugo Morales, I mean, what can you say about a driver that goes from 15th to 4th? Absolutely phenomenal performance from Hugo as well, and a brilliant finish to the season. So I don't doubt, Jesse, when these guys come back in a couple of weeks, time to fight in the next championship, all of them are going to have something to say about it. And I do not doubt for a second that we're going to see a huge fight out front.
Yeah, I think you will. Boothby, though, backing up everything he was able to do back in the winter or spring of 2022, took some seasons off. He's back and immediately goes back to the top. And I was completely unsure how he was going to pull it off after not making round number one at Bathurst. But he has done such a good job. He needed to be just about perfect, Tim Peck, and he has done that here today. Worst finish on the season after missing round number one, which took place of his drop round, P2 at Spa, and wins across the board regardless. Impeccable, unflappable, just about perfect. George Boothby.
Phenomenal driver, and we say this in every single championship they race in. There is probably not many people that could take the fight to George Boothby right now at where sim racing stands. But I've got to say, the championship as a whole and Boothby's performance showcases exactly where you can get to in sim racing, and I think it hands out to the other drivers as well, because Boothby has been fought a lot this season. There have been several battles out on track where Boothby's been under a lot of pressure, and you've got to hand it to the drivers that did put Boothby under pressure, like Hugo Morales, like Salverlinen, that, you know, they've done so much work here, and it's not easy to stop someone who's that dominant in sim racing, but the fact that they all have brung the fight to him has been brilliant. And of course, just a huge well done to George Boothby as well, because to be that consistently good, it's such an amazing wonder on how you can just be that amazing every single race.
Well, speaking of the man, let's talk to him ourselves. George Boothby with us in the box, not only a race winner today, but a champion as well. George Boothby, tell us first of all about your race today. We'll start with qualifying, mixed condition qualifying, getting drier. You had one lap to get it back out front. You did that. The race between you and Savalainen on the initial start, you lost the lead, got it back. What was your thought process through all that?
Hey, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I had good pace in practice, and then it was a like damp track to start out the race. So I start out qualifying, so that threw a big banner in the works. Well, I think everyone knew that the last lap was going to be the one, right? So I just set a few laps that were bankers, and then I wanted to make sure I went over the line as late as possible, so then I had the driest track for my lap. And I managed to do that, but I really messed up my tire pressures. So the sort of advantage I got was taken away a little bit, but it still managed to work out, thankfully. It was a few temps I had. Yeah, it was a bit of a crazy qualifying, but problem with the Ferrari is here, it's not that great in a straight line. So off the start, I was really worried about the Mercedes because it gets such a good launch. And yeah, Savaline got an insane launch, and I think he could have, if he pulled across, he could have got the overlap before turn one, but he didn't. So I just thought I need to send it. You know, I can't be held up here. So I sent it down, and I think we had a little bit of a touch on the exit, but not serious. Yeah, we were side by side for like 3 or 4 corners. I managed to just get the overlap after sometime after sunset. That yeah, just wanted to focus on the race pace, and see how far I could pull away. And I managed to just get the gap and sort of control it again. I had a few really hairy moments in the race as well. I did hit the infamous curb at Cheetah like
Oh,
twice,
dear.
but it wasn't enough to ruin everything and hit a wall. So yeah, it was fun. This is like my favorite track. So yeah, for this to be the final round and to get the win here and the championship, really good. I'm super happy.
I've got something else to ask you, but I am going to turn you over to your number one fan, Tim Peck, real quick.
Well, my question actually wasn't so much based on just the race today, but as the championship as a whole. Of course, you've been so dominant throughout the championship, and it's been a brilliant performance in every race. And what I want to know is, for the viewers at home, how do you get that good? What sort of practice do to get you to the point where you're so comfortable on almost every single racetrack?
You feel like massively big-headed here. Like my ego is exploding. But
You're allowed to have a big ego. You've just dominated a championship.
I mean, like, there's obviously a bit of just like sort of natural like skill, I guess, as there is like anything at the top level. But I do think that like anyone, no matter what skill level you're at currently, anyone can get to like split one in a league. Like no matter what the league is, with enough practice. There's a lot of setup that goes in, like making the car work for you, and making the car fast enough. And then it is literally just driving and getting the most out of a track. Like whenever people ask me in stream, like how do I find that extra second? How do I find that extra 2 seconds? Some of it is setup, but most of it is driving, and the main one is figuring out all the track limits. So how much of that curb can you take? How wide can you go on this curb? Using all the track. That's a big mistake some people make, because they don't use all the track available, and it's like it might just be like half a tenth every corner. Then you think about how many corners on a track, and there's your second. I don't know, it's just a lot of practice, and anyone can get super quick. I think.
Wow. I got to say, George, just leading into that a little bit as well, you've won a bunch of different championships here at RCI. You've done one in a McLaren, you've done one in a Porsche, now you've done one in a Ferrari. Are you the most versatile driver in ACC, do you think? Because you're winning in no matter what car you're in.
I mean, they are my favorite cars. I like the cars I've been drawn to. It would be interesting to see how I do in like something like a Merc or a BMW, I guess. I haven't really tried them too much, but I don't know, the Porsche, I mean, Mache had crazy setups and was able to help me get good with that car. Again, I needed to practice because wasn't very quick. Practice got me there, and then I mean the same with the Ferrari as well. I feel like a few months ago I was a little bit hit and miss with the Ferrari, but working with Samir, he's also on Yas Heat now. We are official teammates. Great. Working with him has helped me really understand the car, and yeah, I absolutely love the Ferrari right now. So I'll probably do another few championship. Yeah, I like going from car to car. It makes the game more interesting, right? So maybe we'll see me in like a different car again, and I don't know.
And finally, of course, is there anybody you want to shout out, think en route to this another spectacular championship that you've had this season?
Yeah, I mean, well, you guys, as always, have been very nice to me and on such a league all the time. Like, RCI is always like favorite league to do, just 'cause everyone's so respectful and everything's so. I don't know. I just think everything's really good about it. Obviously the team, Veloce, Yes Heat, Froch for all the setup help, and everyone in the chat for watching. You know, thanks, guys.
Well, you can find George Boothby over on his Twitch channel, twitch.tv/UCOG. Go over there and spam pot friend for me if you don't mind. I'm a little tied up, can't do it myself. But George, congratulations again. Another brilliant championship winner here in the pro split of season 7 of the GT Sprint Challenge. A champion again in RCI. Congratulations.
Thank you so much, guys. Cheers.
I know why you're his number one fan, Tim. He's such a lovely individual to talk to and be around. And who can beat him, I think, is what it's going to take. I listed off just a few of his accomplishments. He's won more championships than that just here at RCI and obviously elsewhere as well in different cars. But those are the three that came to mind because they happened on a Friday championship. He's saying that he might stick with a Ferrari in the future. That'd be very interesting to see if anybody could get up to his level because clearly I hate to say it, I don't think anyone is right now.
Oh, yeah, of course. I mean, we've talked about this. I think about every single championship we've seen him in, and he's just been such a brilliant driver. There's no one that can match his pace that consistently across the entire race, and it seems like there's very little drivers out there that can confidently take him on the track. That being said, of course, the drivers that have taken him on and have done a great job in doing so, they should definitely take away from that. I mean, to say, we were talking earlier about how just fighting some of the best can give you that huge momentum boost. I mean, to say that you've fought and even sometimes won over George Boothby is probably the best momentum boost you can get. But going back to this championship, I think there is no doubt why George was the winner. And it's because at the end of the day, came in round 2 and was just consistently fast, consistently safe, and just consistently a good driver all round, always capitalizing off every single loss that happened, always capitalizing on qualifying performances and every battle that happened, just making sure that they were constantly pushing forward. And it's definitely not been easy for them, I don't think. Don't get me wrong. It looks very easy from where you're sitting because it's like, oh, they've won almost every race. They came second in the other. They're unbeatable. It's easy for them. But to be that good still takes a lot of practice and a lot of time, and it's still not easy to just be that sort of performer on the track. So I've got to hand it to George Boothby. It's been a brilliant performance from him in this championship and a very well-deserved championship victory.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And with that, there's only a couple things left to do. A big thank you to our partners that make this race and championship and every race and championship possible here on RCI TV. AK Informatica, of course, for providing our server solutions. Driver 61. You can get 25% off your driver coaching by using our discount code in the description of this video. 25% off, of course. And driver coaching can and will make you a better racing driver, just like George Boothby was talking about earlier. And of course, fanatec.com. Feel free to use our affiliate link when making purchases of quality sim racing hardware over at fanatec.com. Doesn't cost you a thing, and it tells them that we sent you. It helps us with things like server costs when you use it. Thank you very much. And well, that is the sun setting on the racetrack and the season. The fireworks were displayed in the sky at the race end and all throughout the race on the racetrack. We'll have a couple of weeks break before the next Friday champ starts up. But in the meantime, Night Owl starts up tomorrow. No stream for that, unfortunately. Several of us away on assignment this weekend, of course. And the ongoing Monday Deutschland Masters Championship on Monday. And pretty sure Thursday champ just went up for signups as well. You can sign up to any championship, either starting or still being. Oh, here are the standings. In fact, George Boothby does dominate the series. 273 to 118 is the difference. Hugo Merrill's did finish second. Jardier was able to claw back P3 over Samir Foch. Foch did beat Valentin Berrier to P4 by virtue of beating him on the track. That's how tight the points were. Outside the top five, Martin Lawrence in sixth, Pico Vandervelde in seventh, Romain Thomas, Alessio Mellis, and Wouter Billen, your top 10. But as I was saying, you can sign up to any championship currently in progress or about to start by going to our website, racerci.com, and doing your pre-queue the week of the race. In fact, you can still make Night Owl or Monday's Deutschland Masters Championship for the upcoming round. Rest of the championship standings scrolling through your screen. Some ties, some tiebreakers there. Ashley Richardson would appear to win this tiebreaker between them and Brian Scheckerman by virtue of having a better finish, I would assume. That's how that is decided, but just a handful of points between all these different drivers, Tim.
Yeah, I mean, we knew this coming into the final round. It was so close between a lot of them, and some amazing performances took some drivers from positions like 20th and 15th all the way up into that top 10. So it's been absolutely brilliant this final round. And I will say it was definitely the most important round, which we knew it would be going in, but it just got showcased by these huge points gains championship. And well done to everyone who raced in this championship as well. I think that is some of the best racing as a whole that I've seen commentating at RCI. I think this was definitely one of the championships where it seemed there were so many people who stepped up and it could have gone so many different ways. The top 10 every week was absolutely phenomenal and there were different people in different positions all the time. So a big well done to all the drivers who participated.
Through three races, we had three different winners. What will season 8 have in store for us? I can't wait to get going. We'll be back to bring you that in several weeks after the pre-Q qualifying is concluded. Of course, we thank you all as well for watching and participating today and throughout the entire season. It was fantastic to have you on, and we invite you to join us for season 8. And of course, all the upcoming series will be broadcasting here as well. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and hit the bell on the way out. A big thank you to the stewards, as always, as well, for all of their help keeping the race fair and safe. And of course, the admins and the broadcast team for providing all of their assistance. Big hand to Stewie as well, our chief broadcaster here. Tim, it's been an absolute pleasure doing this series with you. We'll be back in the meantime. And until then, have a good night.